breathtaking turn of events, Valencia, Spain, found itself at the epicenter of one of the most devastating floods in modern European history. The city and its surrounding regions were ravaged by a meteorological disaster that left homes submerged, lives upended, and an entire nation grappling with the scale of the catastrophe. This mass evacuation was not just a response to rising water, but a race against time to save as many lives as possible. What unfolded on those fateful days will forever remain etched in the annals of natural disasters. The disaster began in late 2024 when Valencia fell victim to the wrath of a meteorological phenomenon ominously dubbed the cold drop. This high-altitude isolated depression collided with the warm Mediterranean waters, setting off an explosive chain reaction in the atmosphere. Within hours, torrential rains began battering the region, delivering more than a year's worth of precipitation in an apocalyptic deluge. The State Meteorological Agency, AMET, had issued multiple warnings, but no one could have anticipated the sheer ferocity of what was to come. Rivers and ravines overflowed their banks with alarming speed, transforming city streets into raging torrents. By the time the rain subsided, the death toll had climbed to a staggering 231, with dozens still missing and thousands displaced. Entire neighborhoods were swallowed by the floodwaters. Families were left stranded on rooftops, waving frantically for help. Cars floated away like paper boats in the surging tide, and the once vibrant city of Valencia became a sprawling lake of destruction. Rescue teams worked around the clock, but the sheer magnitude of the disaster stretched resources to their limits. The towns surrounding Valencia bore the brunt of the catastrophe, with regions like Porta suffering some of the heaviest casualties. Stories of survival began emerging, some harrowing, others awe-inspiring. One family, trapped in their attic for nearly 2 days, survived by rationing a single loaf of bread and signaling rescuers with a flashlight. Elsewhere, a group of elderly residents at a care home were miraculously evacuated by volunteers who formed a human chain to guide them to safety through waist-deep waters. Infrastructure in the region was crippled. Roads were rendered impassable as they crumbled under the relentless force of the water. Bridges that had stood for decades buckled and gave way. Electricity and communication lines were knocked out, plunging entire areas into darkness and severing crucial lines of communication. The chaos was compounded by the failure of Valencia's aging sewage system, which became overwhelmed and further exacerbated the flooding. Emergency services struggled to coordinate as the city's infrastructure buckled under the strain. For residents, the psychological toll was as devastating as the physical destruction. Families were separated in the chaos, with loved ones frantically searching evacuation centers for missing relatives. The fear and uncertainty were palpable. In shelters hastily set up in schools and community centers, volunteers worked tirelessly to provide food, clothing, and medical care to those who had lost everything. Yet, amidst the despair, there were moments of extraordinary solidarity. Neighbors who had scarcely spoken before the disaster banded together, offering each other comfort and support in the face of unimaginable loss. Economically, the flood has left a gaping wound in Valencia's fabric. Early estimates peg the damages at an eye-watering €3.5 billion, with nearly 48,000 businesses affected. Valencia, a vital contributor to Spain's economy, now faces an uphill battle to recover. The destruction of farmland and supply chains has not only impacted local businesses, but also threatens to ripple across the nation's economy. Experts warn that the disaster could shave up to 1 percentage point off Spain's GDP in 2024. In the immediate aftermath, Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez visited the flood-stricken areas, promising a robust government response. He announced an aid package of nearly €3.8 billion to help residents and businesses rebuild. However, the recovery process is expected to take years and could cost tens of billions more. European Union officials have also stepped in, calling for the establishment of a dedicated disaster relief fund to address not only this crisis, but future natural disasters exacerbated by climate change. As the waters receded, they left behind a landscape of devastation. Mud and debris clogged streets, homes, and businesses. The smell of stagnant water and sewage hung heavy in the air. Cleanup efforts began almost immediately, with thousands of volunteers from across Spain descending on Valencia to assist. Equipped with shovels, wheelbarrows, and an unyielding determination, they worked tirelessly to restore some semblance of normalcy to the battered city. Despite their efforts, the enormity of the task ahead looms large. Entire neighborhoods will need to be rebuilt, and the psychological scars on survivors may take even longer to heal. The cold drop that unleashed this calamity has sparked urgent discussions about climate resilience. Experts point to the rapid urbanization of Valencia and the surrounding areas as a contributing factor to the severity of the flooding. Natural wetlands, which once absorbed excess rainwater, have been paved over to make way for development. This, coupled with outdated infrastructure, left the city ill-prepared to handle such an extreme weather event. The disaster has reignited calls for sustainable urban planning and environmental restoration efforts, such as the revitalization of the La Albufera Lagoon, which could play a critical role in flood mitigation. Scientists and environmentalists emphasize that this is not an isolated incident. Climate change is making weather patterns more unpredictable and extreme events more frequent. The flooding in Valencia serves as a wake-up call, urging governments and communities to take proactive measures. Investing in flood defenses, restoring natural ecosystems, and reducing greenhouse gas emissions are among the many strategies being discussed to build resilience against future disasters. But even as Valencia begins to rebuild, questions linger. Could this disaster have been mitigated with better preparation? Were the warnings issued by AMET acted upon swiftly enough? And, most crucially, what can be done to prevent such a catastrophe from happening again? These are not just questions for Valencia or Spain, they are questions for the entire world as we grapple with the realities of a changing climate. One thing is certain, the flooding in Valencia is a harrowing reminder of nature's power and the fragility of human infrastructure. It has underscored the urgent need for proactive measures to safeguard lives and livelihoods. As rescue teams continue their work and residents begin the long process of rebuilding, the focus must shift to creating a more resilient future. Investments in climate adaptation, sustainable urban planning, and disaster preparedness are no longer optional, they are imperative. The people of Valencia have shown remarkable resilience in the face of adversity. Their courage and solidarity offer a glimmer of hope amidst the devastation. Stories of survival, like that of a young boy who braved the floodwaters to rescue his stranded dog, or a group of strangers who banded together to form an impromptu shelter for displaced families, have captured hearts around the world. Such tales remind us of the power of human compassion even in the darkest times. As the city rises from the waters, it carries with it lessons that will undoubtedly shape the way we prepare for and respond to natural disasters in the years to come. Governments, communities, and individuals alike must heed the warnings of scientists and learn from the tragedy that has befallen Valencia. The scars left by this flood will remain, but they must serve as a catalyst for change and resilience. If you found this coverage compelling, be sure to like, comment, and share to spread awareness about the importance of climate resilience and disaster preparedness. Together, we can ensure that the tragedies of today lead to a safer tomorrow.